Hi there, and welcome back to the Take 10 Texture class. I have a really fun layout to share with you guys today, and I'm actually going to start off at normal speed because I'm going to show you guys some ideas of different products that you can use for this. So this is the photo that I'm going to be scrapbooking today, and I have a Stencil Girl stencil here. I love this stencil with all these hearts, and I love to use this one for mixed media projects because it just covers the page so nicely with those fun little hearts. Now, when I do mixed media projects, I often multitask, and so I have that tag out. I'm actually not going to use the tag today, but I am going to put some mixed media stuff on there, so you'll see that as well. And now I'm just laying out all of the possible options that you could use for this kind of a project as far as adding pigment to your mixed media goes. So I'm kind of just ordering them here based on products so that similar products are together. So these first four are examples of different mists that I have in my supply stash, and some of these you might have. So I'm trying to think about not having to buy new supplies. So these are Adirondack Color Wash, and they're a fairly old mist. And then this is SEI Tumble Dye, and this is used for fabrics, but I also use it for splattering mist on my layouts. This is Dylusions Ink Spray, and this is Heidi Swap Color Shine. This one is a little bit different than the others in that it has a bit of shimmer to it. And then this is Mr. Huey's. So all of these are different color mists that are common in scrapbooking, and you may already have one of these. This is Distress Ink Refills, and so this is just used to refill your regular Distress Ink pads. So I'm just heading over to pick one of those out so that you can see what it looks like. So you can get those re-inkers to refill those ink pads. Both the one that I showed you and the little tiny ones can both be re-inked. And then the next thing that I have here is my Stampin' Up! Refill. And this one is for, it looks like strawberry slush. I'm not entirely sure. But this is the ink pad that re-inks, and so you can buy those separately to re-ink your pads with. And so all of these so far are supplies that you may already have. This is Liquitex ink. It's an acrylic liquid ink, and I love, love, love this for mixed media. It has a slightly different top to it, so this has a large dropper. Both this and the Distress ink have droppers like that, and then this is Ken Oliver Color Burst, and this is a dry pigment. And you just dump a little bit. Don't squeeze because too much will come out. I just dump a little bit into a color palette, a well color palette, and then I just take my water mist bottle and I add a little bit of water to it, and then there you go. You have a liquid ink that you can use as well. You could use the dry Ken Oliver pigment powders with this process that I'm going to show you, but it would have a much less consistent look if you used the powdered, and it might actually look really cool. It might have some cool marbling and that sort of thing, but I'm just showing you how you could mix it up and make your own little liquid and then add that to the mixed media that I'm going to show you. You can even, if you're really hard up and you don't have any of these other supplies in your stash, you could even use a marker like a Distress ink marker or any marker that's designed for stamping, and just add a little bit of water to it. You're not going to get a whole lot of pigment using the marker technique, but if you're really hard up and don't have the color in the mist that you're looking for, you can always play around with almost any form of pigment, even paints and different products. I really enjoy using liquid pigment substances for this kind of a process. Now I'm going to be using, as the media that I'm adding my color to, I'm going to be using this natural sand texture gel from Liquitex. And I'm just trying to show you the texture of it. It's a texture paste that has a gritty substance in it. It holds its shape fairly well. It is, as far as fluidity versus thickness, it's on the thicker end. It's a little bit more than halfway according to the Liquitex ratings of fluid versus thick. And I'm just trying to give you a sense of the texture of it by showing it to you on the toothpick and in my fingers. And now I'm going to show you just a couple of other options in case you don't have this. I don't want you to feel like you have to go out to do these techniques. So that's Liquitex Natural Sand, which I'm using today. And I will talk in a little bit more detail about what that one looks like when it dries, when I get to that part. But now I'm grabbing a Golden product. This is Golden Light Molding Paste. When you pick up the jar, it is shockingly light because this molding paste is so light and fluffy. It has a consistency that's very similar to a whipped frosting, and it's very, very light. It does hold its shape, and I'm just showing you how it looks on my fingers and on the toothpick, and this would be a great option as well. There are other products by different companies that I just don't have on hand to show you. Anything called embossing paste, texture paste, or molding paste. All of those items would work for this. And then I also have another product here that I'll show you. It's called Liquitex Glass Beads Texture Gel, and I'm just going to scoop out a little bit on my toothpick to show you that as well. And it is quite difficult to see here, but it has all these little tiny clear glass beads in it there. Now you're seeing some of them. As it spreads out and as it dries, you can see the glass beads. Now this one has a much glossier finish when it dries, and you can almost tell in the wet substance that it has a bit of a shiny glaze to it. And so the other ones that I showed you tend to dry more on the matte side. And so you can take a look at what you already have in your stash, or if you're heading to the art store, those are some things to look for. You could even use gesso if you wanted to. You just have to use a very, very thick coating of gesso and wait for it to dry and remove your stencil very, very cautiously if you're using gesso. I have used gesso for texture before, and it works quite well. So I am, as I mentioned, using my Natural Sand Liquitex Texture Gel, and I added 2 drops of that Tim Holtz Distress Reinker, and that made a really nice creamy pink substance. It's a nice medium pink, and I am starting in the center of this stencil and just spreading it around with my palette knife. And you could use anything to spread it around: a popsicle stick, a stir stick, a little anything, a credit card. So then I added a little bit more texture paste, which resulted in a lighter color of pink because, of course, the texture paste has a white opaque color to it. And then I spread that around, and then I added even more texture paste. So the more texture paste I add to my tray, and I'm just using a paper plate as a palette here, the more texture paste I add without adding extra reinker, the lighter the color is. And so I wanted this to gradually fade to a lighter color of pink towards the outsides of the design. So I concentrated the darker color in the middle and then just kind of kept lightening it as I went with more texture paste. Now, as I mentioned, I do like to multitask. If I've got my mixed media supplies out, I feel like I want to make the most of what I get out of that effort of taking out my supplies, and also the cleanup effort afterwards. So I'm just mixing up a tiny bit more of that texture paste, and I am going to use this stencil on this plain tag that I have. And that's not going to be in today's project, but I thought I would show you that anyways, just to encourage you to make your supplies go as far as possible. It's a great way to use a leftover. I had to mix up more, but if you did have some some leftovers, it's a great way to use the leftovers. I highly suggest that you clean off your stencils while they are wet. So before this medium dries on your stencil, it's just much, much easier. And a baby wipe will leave some residue behind on your stencil. So you might want to use a cloth instead of a baby wipe if you don't like having to mess around with getting all those little baby wipe fibers off of the edges of your stencil. So here's my photo. It's a fun shot of myself and my two daughters and then the neighbor across the street. We all went on a hike and we stopped in this underpass that was completely graffitied. And we don't have a whole lot of graffiti in our city, so I thought it was a fun place to stop and take a picture. Now, what you're looking at right now is a black and white version of this photo. And at first I was thinking about using this black and white version, but I very quickly changed my mind, but I didn't switch out the photo until the very, very end. And so make sure that you have a look at the end at the difference that using the color photo really makes on this layout. At first, I just wasn't sure which direction this layout would go in, and I thought that the black and white version might work with my idea, but it turned out to not really work so well. I'm using my creative memories, and I'll talk about that kind of towards the end when it all comes together, so you have a better sense of why. But I used my creative memories trimmer to just trim that up so it had a very small border. And now the one thing that I will say about these Liquitex texture gels that have the E on them, E is just on the label, it's for effects. The one thing that I will say about these is that they take a very, very, very long time to dry. So here I am using my heat gun, and you see that I use it for a long, long time here. And this is on 4 times the speed, and it's still not dry and not even really tacky dry. Like it's still quite wet even by the time I'm finished what you see me doing here. So I'm actually going to set this aside and give up on trying to dry it at this point. I'm going to set it aside, and I can't really see, I'm testing it and it's still sticky. It's still coming off on my finger. So I'm going to put it aside, and I don't have the patience to wait to design my project. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to design this layout using this pink piece of paper just as a stand-in for the background. And then at the very end, when my background paper is completely dry, I'll switch it out. So I'm not going to actually stick anything to this pink piece of cardstock. So this is my initial idea for this design, is that I will use these stickers from the Paige Evans Take Me Away collection. I'm going to use the gold foam phrase stickers, and the package is called Dream. And I'm using those for my title, and I love the gold cardstock. You'll notice that I peeled the backing away from the sticker instead of peeling the sticker away from the backing, and that just keeps it from getting bend marks in it, like little creases and stuff in it. I'm taking a strip of this tone gray floral pattern paper, and that's going to be the ledge upon which my layout is going to sit. That paper is also from the Pink Paisley Take Me Away collection, as are these stickers. These are the chipboard stickers, and they're called Wild Heart. And so I grabbed that Stay Weird because we all have kind of crazy looks on our faces, and we were just being kind of crazy. There were people walking by and thought we were kind of strange to be standing there taking photos of ourselves. But I really love the idea of doing what you want to do and not really caring about what other people think. It's hard sometimes to do that, but I like to do that whenever I possibly can. So you see me just kind of designing around that ledge. So my whole starting point was the Wild Heart, the photo, and the ledge. And now I'm putting that Stay Weird is going to hang below the ledge. And then those 4 more horizontal type of chipboard stickers will go 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom to provide some balance. Now I'm picking out some pattern papers that pick up on, I want some pinks, and I also want some purples because of the purples that are in the Stay Weird and also in the Weekend Vibes sticker. And so this floral, I'm thinking about layering this floral with that gray strip, but then I thought that the geometric pink pattern that is actually there. It looks kind of like a zigzag. It made a better complement for the gray floral paper because I didn't really want a floral beside a floral, so that was my thinking on switching that out. I did cut a strip of that other floral paper, but I'm not going to use it. Instead, I'm going to make photo corners. My first photo corners were just too tiny, so I cut another square and cut it in half to make 2 more photo corners for the top and the bottom of my layout. And now I'm thinking about maybe making some die cut elements to go on this. So I'm looking through my collection of die cuts, and this is one of my favorite die cuts to use for making embellishments. It is a die called Stitched Journaling Card. It's a set of dies from Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to use those. I just had a quick look through the rest of my dies just to make sure that, and this is my Cuddle Kids, which is a tiny little, it's actually made for children, but it's a tiny little die cut machine, and I like it for my process videos because it doesn't take up as much space on my desk as my Big Shot. I don't have to clear everything away in order to use it, so I'm going to use that with 2 of the dies. I'm just cutting out chunks of pattern paper from the collection, and I basically, I want to be able to bring some more of that gray floral paper to the top and to the bottom of the layout, so that's why I chose that one. And then I also wanted to introduce just a punch of pink as well, like a hotter pink than what's already in the layout. And that is because at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go back to the color version of that photo. And it's actually a very bright, colorful photo because not only is it colorful because of the graffiti behind, but also I'm just using my Stampin' Up! Paper piercer, my paper piercer to get the little hearts out of the die. I ran it through Instagram, so all of the colors in that photo really pop out, and so I want to have some of that hotter pink color on this page as well, just to tie in with the colors that will be in the photo. I'm trimming these down, and I'm actually using the negative space as opposed to the little positive cut shapes from that one. I'm going to keep the positive shapes because I think I might use them for embellishment as well, but these are my main 4 embellishments that I just made from those dies. And there is a stray little adhesive backing, one of those little backs of a Pop Dot. But I'll get rid of that soon. So here I am at my sewing machine, and the thread in the top is pink, and the thread in the bottom, which is my bobbin, is white. And I'm just going to run 2 strips of sewing across the larger space that I left when I trimmed those down on each of those 4 die cut pieces, I guess. And I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to use all of them on this project or not, but if I don't use them all, I'm going to put my extras in with the die cut pieces for this collection so that they don't go to waste or anything. Running them all through twice, and I'm just sorry that the way that my camera is, you couldn't see exactly how I was doing that, but I just kind of pushed them through twice in just a straight line. And now I am going to trim off the little extra bits on this because I felt like it would be a little bit too much texture to have all of those stray threads hanging off of each of those embellishment pieces. They're not part of the main part of the layout. They're just kind of on the outside perimeters of the layout. So I don't want to draw too much attention to the top and bottom because most of the story takes place in the middle. That's where the photo is, and that's where the title is. So here I'm flirting with the idea of using some of the positive pieces of those die cuts on the top and on the bottom. Again, that gives me some symmetry and so on. Now, here's a use for this acetate piece that you can get with this collection. I like to take strips of acetate. I'm not a huge fan of using big pieces of acetate as my layer, like amongst my layers, because I find that it tends to just be so shiny that it kind of takes away from from the print on it. But I find using a strip like this is a much better way. So at this point, I'm wanting to actually put my layout together now. So I just hit that with a heat gun just to finish off the drying process. And now I'm ready to go. So as I move my layout over from the pink piece of paper to this patterned kind of custom made mixed media piece, one thing is becoming clear, and that is that using those 3 little hearts and the 4 or 5 little chevron pieces on the top and the bottom is not going to work, because it'll be competing too much with the pattern of hearts right behind where those were going to go. So I'm just leaving those behind. I'm not going to use them in those places. And now I'm trimming down my paper, because you'll notice that the pattern of hearts that's on the background is all fully contained with a border of white all the way around it. So I want to go with that. I don't want any of my strips to hang off the edges of my page. I want it all to be contained with a little white border of white all the way around the perimeter of this layout. Well, except for the top and the bottom. Basically, I want that perimeter on each of the edges to stay intact. I don't want this paper to fully cross that white border on the 2 sides. So I did forget to outline that pattern paper, and I felt like it really needed it, especially once it was up against that pattern of the hearts on the mixed media hearts on the white cardstock background. I am adhering my photo, even though it's the gray one. I'm still kind of thinking about whether I want to use the gray one or the colored one. So I'm adhering it with Stampin' Up! Dimensional adhesive, which is quite a bit stickier than regular adhesive, so it's good for using on a mixed media background like this. Also, these foam thickers really stick well to things, and so that's another good reason to use it over this mixed media background. So I will talk about sticking things as I go, because some things are harder than others to stick to a mixed media background. Those things are easy. So foam usually sticks quite well to a mixed media background. Now my papers, I just use regular adhesive, but I did run the adhesive all the way across the edges of it just to make sure that it sticks, because regular adhesive on paper will not stick quite as well on a mixed media background. It holds well enough, but not awesomely. Now I'm just layering a couple of things down here in this bottom corner. So I have that strip of acetate and then my photo corner that I made. And then I just stapled the die cut piece along with one of those gold foam hearts from the thicker collection that I took. Now these chipboard stickers are not sticking at all to that background. Stay Weird is only sticking to the paper. It lifts from where it's on the mixed media piece, and these 2 pieces just don't stick at all. You'll see that as I move it around, they keep moving. I'm going to show you an adhesive that you can use for that. I have a roll of score tape. It's by Sook Wang, and it's very strong double-sided tape that you can use, and it's a nice clear type of double-sided tape, so I like it for that, and it's very thin. So there I just layered the same 3 elements, or 4 I guess, the acetate strip, the hand cut photo corner, the die cut piece, and the gold heart, all layered up there and stapled with a staple from my tiny attacher. And now I'm going to use this Sook Wang score tape, and I'm just cutting it in half because it's a little bit too wide for the pieces, and I'm just adhering it right to the backs of those chipboard stickers. And those are also from the same Wild Heart sticker set that the Stay Weird came from. And now you can just tear off the backing, and then they're very sticky and they stick very nicely to this project. And I like how those stickers have some gold elements on them. It brings some gold into the rest of the project, not just in the title. Also, that's also why I put those foam hearts on the top and on the bottom, just to bring some gold accents to the top and the bottom, so that the gold is nicely spread throughout the project. So that's looking pretty good. And even those two paper strips in the center didn't stick all that well to the mixed media backing. They're stuck to other things that are stuck to the backing, so they're not going to go anywhere. Now, I felt like I needed a little bit of gray up here in the top, so this is where I took 3 of those punched chevrons that came from the die cut piece that's actually on the bottom, and I'm putting them so that they're layered kind of underneath and behind the die cut heart piece. Just like that. So now there's a bit of gold, a bit of gray, and a bit of pink in the top. And now I need to bring a bit of pink down here too. So I'm taking, again, this just adds a little bit of symmetry to this project. And I'm taking the die cut hearts. These are the positive centers from the heart die cut, that piece that's up at the top. And I'm just putting 2 of them down here. And with such a wild background, like those hearts are really very organic and flowy looking. And so I'm adding structure to this layout just to bring it together. Here's my journaling. It just says under the overpass at the bluff, and then I'm adding little brackets on both sides of that journaling. And so the structure that I added to this project to kind of compensate for the wild nature of all those hearts are the strong straight lines across the center. I'm just going to add some twine here to this Stay Weird chipboard piece. It was looking a little bit flat and boring compared to some of the other things. This adds all the more texture to this piece. Twine is a lovely way to add texture. And so the strong horizontal lines across the center of this layout adds to the structure of it, and also the repetition and the symmetry, the fact that I repeated things, elements from the top to the bottom, so those weekend vibes and perfect. I'm just adding a little dab of glue behind that bow so that it won't move around. And then those balance with the Fearless and the Carpe Diem stickers, and then there's symmetry and repetition from the top little mini cluster to the bottom little mini cluster in the bottom and top corners. Now, to add a little bit more playfulness to this, I'm adding some mist splatters, and this is in Primrose Heidi Swap. It's called Color Shine, and I'm just using a baby wipe to remove it from all of my shiny elements that it drops on, because it won't dry on those parts of the project. I'm just covering my photo, and I basically want these little splatters to look like they come from the center of the project, as opposed to, I'm not making it go diagonally through my layout. I'm just making it kind of radiate from where the scrapbooking elements are. Now, I didn't mean to get so many drips down on the hearts, and so the hearts have like a little bit of a rubbery texture to them when they're dried, and so I was able to wipe off the mist that landed on those hearts. Now I'm putting away my Heidi Swap non-stick mats. And here, I'm going to show you this before I replace the photo. I still hadn't decided. I was pretty sure I was going to replace the photo, and I showed it. I think I just kind of forgot about replacing it. I showed it, and it wasn't until I was taking the photos I was like, wait a minute, I was going to replace that photo. So you will see the replaced photo in the photographs of this layout. I really love this page. It's one of my favorite pages that I've made recently. What I love about it is that Stencil Girl stencil, just those hearts are so whimsical and fun. And even though there's some places that are not perfect, like you see that big blob on one of them, it's so whimsical and playful. And then I added the structure to this page just to balance off the whimsical nature and give it a little bit of form and shape. So there's how it looks with that colorful photo as the photo instead of the black and white one. I really like how this project looks. You'll see the overall layout at the very, very end of these. So thanks so much for watching. The one thing that I didn't talk about is how I kind of tried to balance the texture of the paste on the background and the twine and it's kind of like some rough textures along with some shiny smooth textures. So the photo and all of those gold elements give me a nice shiny smooth balance for some of the rougher bumpy textures that are on this layout with the sewing and the background and that sort of thing. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all back in the classroom. Oh, and I hope that you guys are sharing your projects with us on the Facebook group and getting some inspiration and chatting and asking questions over there too. So take care, and I will see you on the next one.